there, my name is Dr. Marissa May. In this video, we'll be looking at the three methods to solving quadratics. Let's take a look at factoring first. When we are solving a quadratic equation by factoring, our first step is to set the equation equal to 0. I like to get all of my x to the second terms on the left if I can. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the x and subtract the 30 from both sides so that I can get all of the terms on the left. Now, I'm going to factor the left side. So what I'm doing is I'm using a little X here just to kind of organize my information. And what I need is I need two numbers that multiply to give me the number by itself. That's negative 30. But I need those same two numbers to add to give me the number that's with the X, which in this case would be negative 1. So I'm asking myself, what two numbers will multiply to give me negative 30, but will add to give me negative 1? And that is negative 6 and positive 5. So what do we do with those two numbers? Well, we put them in parentheses with an x. So x minus 6 and x plus 5. Now, in order to solve, once we have it factored, we set each of the parentheses equal to 0. And then we solve those equations. So x minus 6 equals 0. We can add 6 to both sides. That gives me x equals 6. And x plus 5 equals 0. We can subtract 5 from both sides, and we get x equals negative 5. So my solutions here are x equals 6 or x equals negative 5. We actually get two solutions, and that's okay. Let's look at number 2. It's a little bit different because we have a number in front of the x to the second term. I'm going to begin here on the right just so I have more room. So I'll begin by moving all the terms to one side. I'm going to subtract that 10x so that we can bring it to the left. And the method I'm going to use here is called the AC method. Now, A and C come from the standard form of a quadratic equation. So you can see that my A is 3 and my C is negative 8. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to use my X to organize my information. However, when I ask myself what multiplies, I'm going to multiply the A times C. So 3 times negative 8 gives me negative 24. So I need two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24, but add to give me the B here. So add to give me negative 10. So I need two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24, but add to give me negative 10. That's going to be negative 12 and positive 2. You may need to play around with the numbers that multiply to give you negative 24, like list them out to see which ones are going to add to give you negative 10. So just like before, I'm going to write those two in a parentheses with x. But in this case, I have to now divide by the a. So the a was 3, so I'm going to divide by the 3 here. And simplify. So x minus 12 divided by 3 is 4. And here, and now I'm ready to go ahead and set each of the parentheses equal to 0, just like we did before. For the first one, I'll add 4 to both sides, and I get x equals 4. For the second one, I'll subtract the 2/3, and I get x equals 2/3, negative 2/3. So I get both solutions again, x equals 4 or x equals negative 2/3. I'm using the same factoring method. And if you want to see more examples of that AC method, I'll definitely put a video there in the cards for you so you can practice along with that method. Let's take a look next at the quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula is reserved for those equations where factoring may not work. And so you'll notice here that we have to get the equation equal to 0 first. So I'm going to begin with this problem by subtracting the 4x, just like we did before. And then we're going to have to use our A, B, and C values. So I think it's beneficial for us to go ahead and write those out. So my A value here is 1, my B value is -4, and my C value is -12. Now we're going to make those substitutions into the quadratic formula. I want to set up some blanks for you because I think it's going to help you see our substitutions a little bit better. And so I'm just putting some blanks in here so that when we go and fill them in, you can easily see where those are coming from. Okay, so we begin with -b. So this first blank, I'm going to put the b value, which is -4. Then underneath the square root, notice we have b to the second. So in this blank, I'm also going to put b value. Then I have 4 times a times c. So I'm going to put the a value first and then the c value. And then on the bottom, I've got 2 times a. So I'm going to put the a value there. All right, now we begin to clean it up. I'm going to start on the outside by doing this -4. So a negative times a negative is a +4. Plus or minus, and then I've got the square root. Underneath the square root, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to do the -4 to the second, which is 16. And then I'm going to multiply these three numbers together. 4 times 1 is 4 times -12, -48. And then on the bottom, I've got 2 times 1, which is 2. Now, underneath that square root, I'm going to go ahead and make that 16 plus 48, which is 64. And we know that the square root of 64 is 8. So now notice we have two solutions here. One of them, x equals 4 plus 8 divided by 2. And one of them is x equals 4 minus 8 divided by 2. So 4 plus 8 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. And then 4 minus 8 is -4, divided by 2 is -2. So my solutions here, x equals 6 and -2. And again, that's from the quadratic formula. I think we need one more example of that so that you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe when the answers don't come out quite so nice. So let's take a look. All right, on this example of the quadratic formula, let us begin by identifying our values for a, b, and c. So a here is 5, b is -4, and c is -2. So just like before, I'm going to go ahead and put those blanks in the quadratic formula. I always find that that helps students to visualize the substitutions that we're making. And so I use the blanks there. All right, so we begin -b. So we'll put the b value in this first blank. Under the square root, I've got b to the second. So I'm going to put the b value there. Minus 4 times a times c. So we'll put a in the first blank, c in the second blank, and then 2 times a. So I'll put the a value in the bottom. All right, just like before, I'm going to begin with the -4, which is +4, plus or minus. And then I've got -4 to the second, which is +16, minus, and then I've got 4 times 5 times -2, which gives me -40. And then all over 2 times 5 is 10. Now, underneath that square root, I'll go ahead and make that 16 plus +40, which gives me +56 divided by 10. Now, I need to simplify the 56. So I'm going to come over here to the side and I'm going to rewrite the 56 using a factor tree. So what I'm doing is I'm asking myself what two numbers multiply to give me 56. That's 2 and 28. I generally pick out the 2 because it's even. And I circle the 2 because it's prime. There's nothing else that's going to multiply to give me 2 except 2 and 1. The 28 is 2 and 14. And again, I circle the 2 because it's prime. And then the 14 is 2 and 7. And I circle those because both of those are prime. Now we can look for pairs. So I've got a pair of 2s, and then I've got a 2 and a 7 left over. So watch how I'm going to write that. I'm going to put the pair of 2, I'm going to write a single 2 on the outside to represent the pair of 2s, and then I'm going to leave the 2 that didn't have a pair on the inside. That gives me 4 plus or minus 2 on the square root of 14 divided by 10. And I want you to focus on the 4, the 2, and the 10. All three of those are divisible by 2. I'm not going to touch the number underneath the square root, but I am going to divide all these three numbers on the outside by 2. So I've got 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I've got square root of 14, not touching that number underneath the square root, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. This is my solution for the quadratic formula here for this quadratic. Notice this is as far as I can go unless I wanted a decimal. Sometimes you might want a decimal, but a lot of times we don't. So we leave it like this with our square root simplified. All right, one method to go. That's completing the square. Let's take a look. Now, I am using a graphic organizer here just because it helps with the steps for completing the square, but I want you to notice we are solving the equation x to the second plus 20x equals 2. And I want you to notice that we are going to be filling the empty squares here in step number 1, but you may be asking, like, what goes in the box? So we start with b and over 2a. So you'll remember that from our quadratic formula, we used a, b, and we won't need c, but it'll be coming there. So a here is 1, and b is positive 20. So let's fill those in. So b goes on top, that's 20, and a goes on the bottom, that's 1. So 2 times 1 on the bottom is 2. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And then 10 to the second is 100. So we're going to fill these blanks with 100. Okay, step 2. The right side's pretty easy. 2 plus 100 is 102. Now, if we look at the right side, we have to factor x to the second plus 20x plus 100. But let me tell you, it's pretty simple. You're going to put an x first, and then you're going to put the square root of 100, which is 10. We get a plus because of the plus there in the problem. Okay, then we take the square root of both sides. Now, if we take the square root of something being squared, the square root just drops off. I'm sorry, the square just drops off. And then we take the square root of 102, we leave it there. Step 4, we're going to get the variable by itself. So we're going to subtract the 10 from both sides. And 102. And then we can get decimals. So for the first one, we'll do negative 10 plus the square root of 102, negative 10 minus the square root of 102, and we'll get decimals for those. I like to use the Desmos graphing calculator. I will be sure to link that down below for you. So for the first one, I got 0.100 if I round it to 3 decimal places. And the second one, I got negative 20.100. So I hope this helps you with completing the square. There are several steps. That's why I like to use the graphic organizer for it. But I think that this will break it down for you and make it a little bit easier. This concludes our 3 methods of solving quadratics. Be sure to go back through the video here, look at all 3 methods, and make sure that you understand where to get which numbers and how to proceed. Lots of opportunity to practice because practice makes progress. Bye, everyone.